The studio lights dimmed to a soft glow as the cameras clicked on, framing the set in a warmth that was almost deceptive. It was the kind of glow you'd expect in a place meant for comfort, except comfort was the last thing on Dave Rubin's mind. Just 2 days earlier, the news had broken like a thunderclap across America. Charlie Kirk, the polarizing conservative activist, had been shot outside a speaking engagement in Dallas. The event had thrown the political and media worlds into a storm of speculation, grief, outrage, and finger-pointing. Dave sat in his familiar chair on the set of the Rubin Report, his hands clasped tighter than usual, his brow furrowed not in anger but in the gravity of the moment. Across from him, with his long hair tied back and his presence as electric as ever, sat Russell Brand. The two men, different in style, background, and temperament, had agreed that this was a conversation worth having. Not a soundbite, not a slogan, a genuine attempt to chart a path forward after something that had once again laid bare the fractures in American society. "Russell," Dave began, his voice low but steady, "I'll be honest with you. I haven't been able to sleep right since I heard what happened to Charlie. Love him or hate him, agree or disagree, he's a human being. And we've gotten to this place where political differences are not just arguments anymore, they're battle lines. And when someone pulls a trigger, that's when you realize words aren't just words anymore." Russell leaned back in his chair, his fingers forming a steeple, his eyes unusually somber. "Yes, mate," he replied in his rich, animated cadence, "it's a tragedy, first and foremost, for Charlie as a man, as a father, as someone's son. But you're right, this is about more than one individual. This is a symptom, isn't it? Of a society that has, perhaps, forgotten how to speak to each other without venom. We've fetishized conflict, commodified outrage, until the natural conclusion is violence. And yet, violence never brings resolution, does it? It only deepens the wound." Dave nodded, staring off momentarily as if searching for the right words. "The thing is, Charlie knew what he was getting into. He told me once that every event he does, every speech, he walks in knowing there's a target on his back. And while that shows his courage, it also shows how broken we are. Because no activist, no commentator, no comedian, no politician, none of us, should have to wonder if we'll be gunned down for our words." Russell shifted forward, his energy rising. "And yet, here we are. The irony, Dave, is that we live in this so-called age of information, of connectivity, of democracy at our fingertips. But instead of bringing us together, it's fractured us into tribes so insular, so desperate to affirm their worldview, that anything that threatens it is treated as an existential attack. And Charlie, whatever one thinks of his views, embodied a certain uncompromising clarity that some people simply couldn't tolerate." The studio audience, unusually subdued, leaned in. The air was heavy, charged with both grief and expectation. Dave exhaled. "So the question is, what do we do now? Because if we just point fingers, the left did this, the right did that, we'll never leave this cycle. And yet people want justice. People want safety. People want to know that their country isn't descending into civil war." Russell's eyes gleamed, the philosopher in him sparking to life. "Justice, Dave, must begin with truth. We must have the courage to look not only at the shooter, his motives, his grievances, his delusions, but also at ourselves. What kind of culture have we created where this act seemed, in his mind, permissible or inevitable? It's not just about guns, or laws, or politics, it's about alienation. It's about people who feel so unheard, so unseen, that they resort to madness. We must reclaim the sacredness of dialogue." Dave raised a hand slightly, interjecting. "But Russell, let's be real here. There are bad actors. There are people who want violence, who think it's justified. That's not just alienation, it's ideology. It's this belief that, if my side doesn't win, then the other side must be destroyed. And I think the media, legacy outlets especially, fuel this. Every headline is crafted to enrage. Every panel is designed to pit people against each other. It's profitable to make Americans hate each other. And Charlie, well, he was a symbol. For some, a hero. For others, a villain. And symbols get attacked." Russell's face softened, his voice dropping. "Then maybe, mate, the way forward is to stop reducing people to symbols. To remember that Charlie Kirk, before he was a talking head on television, was just a lad with dreams, insecurities, ambitions. When we see each other only as avatars of an ideology, it becomes easy to dehumanize. And dehumanization is always the prelude to violence. Dave's eyes locked onto Russell's. That's powerful. But how do we get people there? Because let's face it, anger is addictive. Outrage gives people purpose. And right now, half of America feels like the other half is their mortal enemy. Russell chuckled bitterly. Yes, the opiate of the masses is no longer religion, as Marx once said, it's indignation. But here's the paradox. When we cling to outrage, we feel powerful, yet we're actually powerless. The only true power comes from compassion, from refusing to let hatred dictate our actions. That doesn't mean abandoning principles. It doesn't mean silencing ourselves. It means learning to fight with words, with ideas, with persuasion, never with bullets. A silence fell across the set. For a moment, both men seemed lost in their thoughts. Then Dave leaned forward, his voice breaking slightly. I think about my friend. Charlie's lying in a hospital bed right now, hooked up to machines, fighting for his life. And I think about how many young conservatives looked up to him, how many liberals despised him, and how all of that melts away when you realize one trigger pull could have ended him forever. And I just keep asking myself, what are we doing? Is this the future we want for our kids? Where the cost of speaking your mind is a bullet. Russell's gaze softened into something almost paternal. What we're doing, Dave, is awakening. Painful as it is, tragedy shakes us from complacency. Perhaps the shooting of Charlie Kirk can be a catalyst, not for more division, but for a collective reckoning. A reminder that we must build bridges, not burn them. That we must learn to live together, or we will die together. The audience erupted, not in applause, but in a murmur of agreement, nods, even tears. Dave turned to the cameras, his voice steady now, infused with resolve. To everyone watching at home, whatever your politics, whatever your beliefs, I ask you, don't let this moment harden your heart. Don't let this be another excuse to hate. If Charlie's pain means anything, let it mean that we have to do better. We have to listen more, scream less, argue with integrity, and above all, see each other as human beings first. Russell, ever the poet, added the final note. And let us remember, dear friends, that the measure of a society is not how it treats its allies, but how it treats its enemies. If we can hold compassion for those we disagree with most, then perhaps there's hope yet. Because at the end of the day, the bullets fired at Charlie Kirk were fired at all of us. They were fired at the very idea of coexistence. And our response must not be more violence, but more love. The cameras held on the two men, their eyes locked in mutual understanding. For once, there was no left or right on that stage. No labels, no tribes. Just two human beings wrestling with the enormity of what had happened, daring to imagine a path forward. Outside the studio, America remained divided, fragile, uncertain. But for the span of one conversation, a glimpse of possibility flickered. That maybe, just maybe, the shooting of Charlie Kirk could mark not the beginning of the end, but the start of something better. And as the lights dimmed and the broadcast ended, the words of Russell Brand lingered in the air, like a prayer, like a challenge. Bullets may wound the body, but only compassion can heal the soul of a nation.